Hello, everyone. I hope you find this. I'm going to give it a couple minutes to give people a chance to find the live stream. I had a little bit of technical difficulties. I haven't done a live stream in over a year. The last live stream that I did was in May of 2021, and I haven't done one since, so I'm a little rusty on doing a live stream. And so the live stream that was scheduled, I almost wonder if I should go to YouTube and put a.
It's not there anymore.
It's not there anymore?
No.
Do you see a live stream announcement at all?
What?
Or do you see, because there's nobody here, do you see that I am live?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hello? I'm talking to no one. Okay, well, I'm just going to begin. Okay, first of all, sorry for the funky background. This is a picture. This blue sky and beautiful blue ocean behind me is a photograph that I took on our recent Harmony of the Seas cruise, which we took from May 29th to June 5th, 2022, so just several weeks ago. And that was a special cruise that we took for Megan's 18th birthday. And we booked it very last minute, and there's going to be some videos coming about that. Yes, I know, William, thank you. It was a problem on my end. I didn't set it up correctly because I wanted to use the StreamYard software, and I should have set it up from StreamYard, and I set it up directly from YouTube instead. But thank you so much for joining. And I will do it right next week because, yeah. But anyway, back to the background. So this picture that I took of the ocean behind me, but I don't have a green screen. So you'll see as I move a little, you're going to see like the little bit of background. Otherwise, you'd be looking at my kitchen, and that's not the most attractive background. So that's why I'm using the picture of the ocean. So I hope you don't mind. But I will play around with that too and see if I can get something better for next week. Okay, I am going to limit today's live stream to 1 hour because we are leaving in less than 3 hours, about 3 hours on a trip. So, and I haven't packed yet. So I have to keep this short. This was an unexpected trip that we didn't know we were going to be taking until just a couple days ago. And so I still wanted to do the live because I already had announced it, but I need to make sure that I stay within that time limit. So if you are not able to join the live today, I will leave the live up for a while so that you can go back and watch it like a regular video. And if I do not get to your questions today, and also several people submitted, I have a whole list of questions here that people submitted ahead of time. I do want to try to focus on cruise questions today. So if you asked a different question that wasn't related to cruising, or if you ask a question in the live stream today and I don't get to it today, I am going to put together a video, a pre-recorded video on the last Saturday of July. So that'll be July 30th. And I will answer any questions that I didn't get to that people submitted already or that are asked in the live stream chats that I don't get to during the 1 hour live stream window. So I hope that makes sense. So don't worry if I don't get to your question, I will answer it in that video on the 30th. Okay, but today's live stream, I want to focus on cruising, our cruise on Harmony of the Seas. Okay, hold on, William, I'm going to come back to that question. And we took a 7-night Eastern Caribbean cruise on Royal Caribbean's Harmony of the Seas, which is in the Oasis class, so the largest class of Royal Caribbean ships. Harmony of the Seas was built in 2015. Is that right, guys? I think it's about 6 or 7 years old. I think it's 2015. And it still feels very much like a very new ship. One question that somebody submitted ahead of time I want to touch on really quick right away, and that was someone submitted a question asking, where are you going for trips this summer? And we have 3 trips this summer. The first one was the cruise on Royal Caribbean's Harmony of the Seas, which is what we're going to be focusing on today. And by the way, I made 20 some videos on that cruise. A couple of them were on the spot videos that I made while we were there and uploaded right away, but the rest are all coming this next week. So that whole series of Harmony of the Seas videos are coming. There's one more video tomorrow, and then it's going to be the very next one, and then they're all going to be coming after that. So the rest of the summer will be all of our videos from Harmony of the Seas. Okay, we are taking 2 other trips this summer. The one we're leaving on today, which stay tuned for my video tomorrow. My video tomorrow explains more about where we're going next. And it also explains where else we're going. So if you want to know where we're going on our other 2 trips this summer, make sure you're subscribed, and so you don't miss tomorrow's video that comes out on Sunday that is going to talk more about our other 2 trips this summer. The last trip that we're taking this summer is actually kind of 2 trips in one, which was not my original intention, but stay tuned for the video tomorrow. Okay, because I explain all of it in that, and I don't want to get into it too much today because I want to make sure that I cover people's questions. Okay, so first I'm going to put up William's question. Okay, William says, hi, we are from the UK and have never done a Caribbean cruise, 10 cruises within Europe. Oh, wow, William, I'm so jealous. We were going to try to do a cruise out of the UK this summer, but I was still a little nervous. I was very thankful that they dropped the testing requirement to return to the US. And because of that, we are coming to you. We are going to the UK in 4 weeks. So we're coming to you later this summer, but we're not doing a cruise. We're going to do some other things in the UK and the EU later this summer. So, but I'm jealous of you that you've gotten to do 10 cruises in Europe. Okay, I've done 3 Caribbean cruises, all Eastern Caribbean. So that's kind of something I should probably answer too. We don't like sitting in the sun. William, we are of one mind on that. We don't like being hot either. And I actually talk about that in 1 or 2 of the videos that are coming. We actually talk about how we don't like being hot and we don't like being in the sun. Now, I will tell you, you can still enjoy a Caribbean cruise if you are cooler weather people like we are. But I'm gonna, so let me talk about that. Okay, so the one thing I would do, first of all, when you're choosing a Caribbean cruise to go on, if you don't like the whole hot weather thing, don't go in the summer like we have. Go in winter. Because when you go in winter, you know, even like, I went in October one time too. November, December, January, February, even March, it's going to feel pleasantly warm. It's not going to be overwhelmingly hot. It's going to feel pleasantly warm and a very nice change from the icky weather that you'll have at home, rainy, snowy, cold. And so that would be my first suggestion, is go on your Caribbean cruise in the winter. The second thing I would suggest is make sure you pick a ship that you're really going to like. If you've been on 10 cruises, I'm assuming you've gone on different cruise lines. You kind of have an idea of what kinds of cruise line fits your personality and that you're going to enjoy. So make sure you pick a ship that you think you're going to like, because as long as you have plenty to do, I guess, inside the ship, then it won't be such a big deal. We are not top deck hot weather people either. So I totally understand what you're saying. But I will tell you that the scenery in the Caribbean can be absolutely beautiful. And I would recommend that you do the Eastern Caribbean like we did. The Eastern Caribbean is visually very stunning. It's very, very picturesque. And even if you don't get off the ship in any of the ports, just the views that you get from the ship, even, you know, when you're docked, are really gorgeous. And the other thing is, when you go on an Eastern Caribbean as opposed to a Western Caribbean or a Southern Caribbean, Western Caribbean and Southern Caribbean cruises are very port intensive. And there's kind of an expectation that you're going to get off the ship a lot in these different ports. And if that's not your thing that you're really into and you don't want to be hot and going to the beach and stuff, then I would focus on the Eastern Caribbean, because the Eastern Caribbean has the most sea days. Eastern Caribbean always has 3, maybe 4 sea days. And then they're going to probably make 2 port stops somewhere in the Caribbean islands. and they're going to probably stop at that cruise line's private island, which was exactly what our itinerary was. We went to Coco Key, which is Royal Caribbean's private island. We went to St. Thomas, and we went to St. Kitts. St. Thomas is part of the United States Virgin Islands, and St. Kitts is part of the Netherlands Caribbean, used to be the Dutch Antilles. So that's where we went. We chose not to get off the ship in St. Kitts after we had a rather hot and exhausting shore excursion in St. Thomas the day before. But I will also add that there are a lot of other shore excursions you can do in the Caribbean that are not sitting on the beach. There's a lot of really interesting history and culture in different places in the Caribbean. Remember that the Caribbean was colonized, if you will, or explored by a lot of different European countries. And so they have a lot of culture from France and the Netherlands and Spain and all of those places back from that area, the era of colonization. So there's a lot of interesting things to see and do in the Caribbean islands that does not involve going to the beach. So I hope that helps you, William. Okay. Have the cruise prices increased a lot after the pandemic? Yes and no. There's two factors that are going into play there. One is because of, I guess you're asking about demand. Actually, when cruises started going again after they were shut down, the demand was actually pretty low because people were still very nervous about cruising. People didn't like that you had to be vaccinated. People didn't like that you had to wear masks. People still don't like that you have to take a test before the cruise. So that actually kind of subdues the demand a little bit. Sorry, I didn't put that question up. And, but also the other factor that's coming in now more recently is inflation. And we are seeing inflation. And now this year, I would say that inflation is having an effect, as is increased travel demand. The travel demand is very high right now. Everything is very, very busy. And so that boosts up the price a little bit. But it really depends. It really depends on the cruise line, the itinerary, the ship, everything. Cruise prices change a lot, not as frequently as airfare, but they do change quite a bit. If you book early and you book during a promotion, and cruise lines always have lots of different promotions. Right now, I got a bunch of emails in the last couple of days from various different cruise lines that are having a 4th of July weekend sale because it's Independence Day weekend here in the United States. And so look for things like that. Book during wave season, which is January, February, March. And you're welcome, Liam. And there's always really good promotions. If you can get a good promotion or a good sale, then you shouldn't have too much trouble finding a decent price. The other thing I would suggest is keep an eye on your cruise price after you book it. Well, two things I want to say about this. Don't pay your cruise off when you book it. Just pay the deposit, the minimum deposit necessary, and then wait as long as possible to pay off your cruise. Now, on this cruise on Harmony of the Seas, we had to pay the whole thing right away because I booked literally 48 hours before the cruise, which is crazy, by the way. And there was no price advantage to booking that late. It was our personal circumstances and what was going on with our family financially that caused me to have to do that. We sold our house. So really the last minute for cruising, and Gary Bembridge talked about this morning in his Tips for Travelers live stream because somebody asked about this. Last minute for cruising is 60 to 90 days ahead of the cruise. After 60 to 90 days, whatever that cruise line's window is for when people can cancel and still get a full refund, they're not going to drop the price anymore. Whatever the lowest price for last minute is, that's as late as they're going to do it. Because once 60 or 90 days, whatever that date is, passes, that's when people who made a deposit but then decided for whatever reason they're not going to go on the cruise, that's when they would cancel by. So that's when more rooms will open up and they can then, then they want to fill the ship up. So that's anything inside 60 or 90 days, you're going to get the best price you probably will get. Other than like some cruise lines, like for example, Disney, your best price available is the day those bookings open up for that sailing. It's going to be the cheapest on that first day that they open up, and then the price is just going to keep going up until the day of the cruise. Where was I going with this? Oh, don't pay more than the deposit because you want to keep an eye on the cruise fare. If they have a sale or a promotion after you book, you want to call the cruise line back or have your travel agent call, and you want to use this word. I would like you to refare me. Refare, R-E-F-A-R-E, because then they will give you the current price and adjust how much you actually owe on your balance. So as long as you're still before the date that your final payment is due, if the cruise price that you paid, that you booked it at drops, you can ask them to refare you and they will redo the reservation under that new fare, and then you'll only owe that much. So that would be my suggestion to you. Okay, other questions? Thank you everyone again for joining, and I really appreciate everybody being here. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. I will have it set up right next week. I am going to be doing 4 live streams here on Saturdays in July. This one is going to focus on cruising. Next week, we're going to be focusing on Disney. The week after that, we're going to be focusing on Europe and international travel, Europe, UK, other places in the world. And the 4th one, which will be on July 23rd, I'm going to be focusing on Disney Cruise Line. However, you're always welcome to join the live streams and ask me any kind of questions that you want to, or any travel related questions that come up. I'm happy to answer those. Okay, anything I missed? Okay, well, while we're waiting for other questions to come up in the chat, I'm going to go to some questions that people submitted ahead of time. And keep an eye on my community tab on my YouTube homepage. I post stuff there all the time. And also, if you follow me on Instagram, Heather Travels the World, or on Twitter, I will have stuff on there too. And usually on Instagram, I'll give you the opportunity, if I have a live stream coming up, where you can submit questions. You can submit questions on my community tab, or you can submit questions on Instagram. So keep an eye out for those. Yeah, William, Disney Cruise Line never has promotions. The only sales that Disney, they don't ever have sales, sorry. The only people they offer special prices to are, I feel like I'm crooked. The only people that they ever offer discounts to are Florida residents, the military, U.S. military, and there's one more. Can't think of what it is. Otherwise, Disney never has promotions, and your best bet on Disney to get the lowest price is to book the cruise the day that they announce the sailings. And they don't announce out as far as a lot of other cruise lines do. Okay, I received a question ahead of time asking how far away is your room from the elevator? And this is a good question. I'm assuming they were asking about our room on Harmony of the Seas. We were on deck 10, near the aft of the ship. We were in room 10682, and we were on the starboard side, which as you're facing the bow of the ship is the right. So as you're going forward, it's the right side. And we were near the aft, but just aft of the aft elevators, okay? On Harmony of the Seas, there's just 2 sets of elevators. There's forward elevators and aft elevators. And so midship would basically be considered the rooms in between those 2 elevators. Forward would be forward of the forward elevators, basically, and aft would be anything aft of the aft elevators, so near the rear of the ship. When you came off the elevator on deck 10 and went to the starboard side of the stairway elevator lobby, our room was not far at all. Was it, guys? No, it was, I don't know, maybe 6 rooms back from the elevator lobby. It wasn't very far. It was very conveniently located. We liked where our room was. And the only thing I would say is on those Oasis class ships, and there's some other ones like this too, there's a bump if you look at the deck plans, those Oasis class ships on Royal Caribbean have a bump in the middle. And if you can get one of those balcony staterooms, you get a little bit bigger balcony. The room is not any bigger, the stateroom. And in fact, some cases it might be smaller. So be careful. Look at the square footage of the room when you book, because our room was pretty tight. And I talk about that in an upcoming video too. And it was definitely a change from this cruise and our last cruise. Our last cruise prior to this one was in August of 2019 for my birthday, right before the pandemic and before the shutdown. We were on an aft facing balcony, which was fantastic. We loved that. And that balcony was huge. It was very, very big. And all three of us could sit out there very easily. This balcony was a standard size, typical size balcony, and it only had 2 chairs and 2 ottomans and a little table. So we couldn't all really be sitting out there at the same time. There were a couple times we did it, but somebody was sitting on the table, or we brought out the desk chair from inside. So just be aware of that. But our room was in a good location. It was very quick and easy to get to the stairs and the elevator. And we were 4 decks. What deck was the Windjammer on? 15? 16? 16. Yeah, there's a lot of decks on those Oasis class ships. So we were 6 decks below the buffet and the pool deck. And we were only 2 decks above Central Park, 4 decks above the boardwalk, because that's on 6, and 5 decks above the Royal Promenade, which is on deck 5. So kind of in the middle. It was a good location. Okay. Is the refare process only applicable for cruises from the US? I don't think so. But obviously I don't live in another country like you do, William. So I'm not sure about that. It's worth a try. I mean, again, going back to Gary on Tips for Travelers, he's always saying to monitor your cruise fare and call back and ask to have your fare changed if you see it drop to a lower price. And he lives in the UK. So I would assume that's true everywhere. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but it's worth asking. I mean, worst case scenario, as long as there's still room on the ship, cancel it and then rebook it at the lower fare. As long as you can still get a decent room that you want and stuff like that. Okay. I don't think I missed any other cruises yet. Okay. Or questions, sorry. All right. Another thing someone submitted ahead of time was, what things cost extra on a cruise? Okay, and this is a good question. And it really depends. It really depends on what cruise line you're on. I talk about this in one of the upcoming videos too. The big resort type cruise lines, and I would say Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, I'll throw MSC in there too. They're going to have a lot of extra costs. And I made a whole video about that that's coming up. So stay tuned for that. The more all-inclusive the ship is, the fewer extra costs you will have. I will also add that it is possible to spend nothing extra. You can pay just your cruise fare and your gratuities and the transportation costs to get to and from the ship and stuff like that. You can spend nothing on board. We've done that. It is possible. And so there's no reason you have to spend any extra money on board, but it's a matter of deciding what's important to you. And the other thing I would add, but I talk about this in an upcoming video too, is just because it's an extra expense doesn't mean you have to pay for it when you're on the cruise. For example, I always get the photo package. But the photo package, and I would argue gratuities and shore excursions, are 3 things that I would always recommend you pre-book. Book and pay for them before you get on the ship, because they're going to be less expensive if you book them ahead of time than if you book them on board. So with anything that you can book ahead of time, book it ahead of time, because that's one less thing you're going to have to think about. and it's one less thing you're going to have to pay for on the ship. And it's going to be less expensive if you pre-book it than if you book it on the ship. So I hope that helps you. But there's a lot of different things, but it really depends on the cruise line. Like, for example, soda is included on Disney Cruise Line. You don't pay any extra for soda, not in the restaurants, not in the buffet. Not, they have free soda machines on board. You can just walk up to them and get soda. So, but on Royal Caribbean, you do have to pay for soda. So it depends on the cruise line. Okay, question here. What would happen if you weren't able to take the cruise? Would you get a refund? Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by then what would happen if you're not able to take the cruise. Then after what? If on those prepaid items, oh, you get them all refunded. Yeah, if you prepay anything, those all get refunded because you didn't use them. Yeah, so if you prepaid anything like a shore excursion or pick a photo package or a soda package or anything like that, it'll just refund to the original form of payment automatically because you didn't use the things. You didn't go on the cruise. Yeah. Okay. Okay, another question. How do you choose which activities and food when there are so many options and a limited amount of time? Okay, good question too. So every day you're going to get a daily planner. Now, I was very pleasantly surprised. I thought they had completely gotten rid of the paper cruise compass and those kind of things on cruises. That's kind of what I heard when cruising first started, right before the pandemic. Maybe when cruising first started up. If you've gone on a cruise recently, will you let us know in the chat or in the comments below if you're watching this later? Did you get a paper daily planner in your room at turndown at night? We did on Harmony of the Seas. But I was surprised at that because I had heard that those had all gone away. The other place that you can always see the whole list of activities and the schedule and everything that's going on the ship is on the cruise line's app. And they basically all have one now. And we did use both the Royal Caribbean app and the daily cruise compass, the paper thing that was left in our room. And we would physically, and I've done this on all my cruises, we would physically take a pen or a highlighter, take a highlighter with you and circle or mark or highlight all of the things that everybody was interested in doing the next day. And then plan around that. You will find that there are some times where you're going to have a conflict. And one of the things we ran into on this particular cruise was a lot of more family-friendly activities were at the same time as dinner. And I talk about that in one of my upcoming videos, how I thought that was really dumb because it was the early dinner that they would have them. And that's when families with kids are going to be eating. So, and there's also every once in a while, there would be two things at the same time that we wanted to go to two things at the same time. You do have to do a little bit of planning. The more stuff there is to do on the ship and the more activities there are, the more you're going to have to pick and choose and plan out and kind of, prioritize, if you will. I mean, it's just like anything else. You're not going to be able to get to everything necessarily. And, okay, William says they all had a paper daily planner on the 4 cruises he's been on 3 different cruise lines since cruising restarted. So that's good to know. So it kind of sounds like they went back to giving everybody the daily planner. Meg?
Yeah.
Would you possibly be kind enough to get me a water? My throat's getting dry from talking so much. Thank you. I don't want to just get up and disappear. Okay. Anybody else have a question right now that's in the chat? Okay. If you're just joining us, thank you for joining. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. Okay, I answered that. Thank you, dear. Hold on, I'm going to take a drink of water. Okay. Anybody else like this? Does it show? It's coconut pineapple sparkling ice. It's my favorite. Sorry, I don't have a green screen and this thing is weird. Okay. All right. I answered that. I answered that. I answered that. Oh, the other thing I would say about that is how you choose what activities and things to go to and food is that goes back to a video I posted recently. If you haven't watched it, be sure to check it out, where I talked about how to have a good trip when you're traveling with other people. And one of the things I said in that video was make sure that everybody gets to do one thing that they really want to do. So, like, for example, one of the things that I really like going to the shows, but so does Megan. What was something that you guys really wanted to do on the cruise?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Karaoke.
But yeah, Megan wanted to really do karaoke. So, and then like make sure that everybody in your group, if you're traveling with a group of people or your family, everybody gets to do at least one thing that they really want to do. That's really important. Okay. Next question. Oh, I already answered that. Is hurricane season a serious threat for cruises? Excellent question. Lots of people wonder about this. The short answer is no. I have been on, okay, well, first of all, hurricane season technically runs from June 1st to November 30th. That's a long season. That's basically all of summer and fall. Okay, so, and yes, that is how long it is. And I'm also going to tell you that it might get longer because of climate change. They're already seeing tropical storms and tropical disturbances earlier in the season. For example, we went through one on the last day of our cruise on Harmony of the Seas, and I made a video about that. So that will be coming up at the end of August. That'll be the last video in the series. We went through a tropical storm. Okay, but it wasn't that bad. We were fine. The captain did alter the course and kind of steer around it as best he could. But the problem was it was the last day of the cruise and we had to get back to Port Canaveral because that's where we started from. And he had no choice but to go through the tail end of it because that's where we had to go. But a couple things about that. First of all, even though the hurricane season is June 1st through November 30th, you don't really see major hurricane activity that whole time. The main months where you're going to see significant hurricane activity are August, September, and maybe a little bit into October. Think about the biggest hurricanes that we've had in the past number of years. Look at the dates of the really bad hurricanes, like the ones whose names they retire and don't use anymore, like Andrew, Sandy, Katrina. Those were all like August, September, October, usually August, September, really. Those are when the worst hurricanes are. So if you absolutely want to avoid hurricane season, I would avoid cruising in those months. However, I have taken 4, I think, cruises in hurricane season so far. And I have another one booked for this August for my 50th birthday. And I have no concerns about taking a cruise during hurricane season at all. Here's the thing about cruising and hurricanes. Ships can move, okay? And ships can move faster than hurricanes can. So the ship can get out of the way of the hurricane. The captain of the ship is watching the weather very, very carefully. And he's well aware of where the seas are bad and the seas are rough. They do not want to take you through rough seas if they can help it. They don't want their passengers stumbling around, falling down, getting hurt, getting sick, being seasick. That's not a positive look for the cruise line. Nobody wants a bad experience on their cruise. So the captain's priority is safety and comfort of his passengers and his crew. So he does not want to take you through that, and they're going to move that ship around to avoid that stuff as much as possible. So going back to this cruise we just took where the captain did reroute us, He was originally going to go on one side of the Bahamas, and he told us the day before, I'm going to reroute the ship and we're going to actually go back a different way on this side of the Bahamas to avoid this tropical storm. The tropical storm had gone kind of southwest to northeast across Florida. I don't know if it had a name. Did you ever hear if that storm had a name?
It had a name, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, we don't know what it was. It was a big storm. I mean, you could see it if you guys were looking right at the beginning of June, there was a tropical storm that went across Florida from the Gulf side across to the Atlantic. And that's what we went through. It was just as it was going out of Florida back into the Atlantic on the eastern side of Florida. And the video coming up is pretty cool. We had 60 knot winds and high waves and stuff. So, I mean, he went a different way to avoid the worst of it, but he still couldn't avoid it completely because, like I said, he had to go back to port. But that's the thing, if anything, it's not that you're going to have rough seas, and it's not that your cruise is going to be canceled or anything. That's very unlikely. The biggest risk, I would say, of cruising during hurricane season is it might affect your embarkation or your disembarkation. And by that, I mean that if the hurricane hits the city that you're embarking or disembarking your cruise from, that can mess things up because people either can't get to the cruise port to get on the ship, or it's not safe for the ship to dock in the disembarkation city. So what I see most often, it's not that anything happens while you're on the cruise. It's that when the ship is having to come or go from the city that it starts and ends at, if that city is in the middle of the hurricane, the ship doesn't want to be there. They're going to stay out at sea and wait it out. So what it might affect is it might affect the length of the cruise for people who are on the cruise already or who are supposed to get on the next cruise. You'll see that happen. New Orleans, it happens quite often, actually, because the other problem with New Orleans is they've got to go quite a ways down the Mississippi River from the port, and it gets fogged in a lot, and it's hard for them to see. Yeah, so it's going to be something like that, which, oh, darn, my cruise is a day longer than it was going to be. It is a bummer if you're on the other end of it, if you were supposed to get on the cruise on Saturday, but the cruise ship had to stay out to sea for an extra day because Hurricane Bob is messing up the city that you were leaving from. And so the ship isn't going to come in until the next day. And then they got to put everybody in a hotel and, or whatever. So then your cruise is now 6 days instead of 7. That's the kind of thing that you're going to see happen. It's not that there's going to be any kind of trouble when you're on the cruise itself. I mean, at most, maybe it'll rain a little. Okay. I have another one. What are the top things to consider when trying to choose a cruise? Okay, this is a good question too. And I made a whole video about this. Now, I made this video quite a while ago. It was probably 2-3 years ago. It's called How to Choose the Best Cruise for You, I think is what it's called. And I just rewatched it yesterday because I had seen that someone had submitted this question and I wanted to remember what I talked about in that video. It's in my playlist Cruise Tips. If you want to check it out that way, I have a whole playlist on cruise tips. And forgive me, it's one of my older videos before I learned how to really edit well. So it's probably longer than it needs to be. And I probably say a lot. I don't leave any ums in my videos anymore. Hold on. Doesn't that look weird when I drink the water? Okay. All right. My water bottle is dripping. The main things when you're choosing a cruise is you need to match the cruise to your particular personality. There is a cruise line, a cruise ship for everyone. But if you pick the wrong one, you're not going to have a good time. So, for example, if you are a young couple with a 2-year-old Don't go on a 14-night cruise on Holland America, okay? That's not a good fit. If you are a quiet, introverted, mellow person who just wants to sit on your balcony and read your book, and you don't like a lot of loud music and activity and things like that, don't go on Carnival. That's not a good fit. So you need to research the different cruise lines. I think in that video, what I talked about was cruise lines is the first one. Cruise ship, and with cruise ship, one of the things I talked about most was the size of the ship. There's two big things with size. One is the bigger the ship, the more stuff it's going to have on it to do. And I talk about this in an upcoming video about our Harmony of the Seas cruise as well, because this actually proved to be kind of a two-sided issue. Yes, there's more stuff to do on the ship, but there's also a lot more people on the ship. So if you don't want to be on the ship with a whole bunch of people, and you don't want to stand in line, and you don't like crowds, then you might not like a bigger ship, even though maybe you like all the activities and stuff they have on there. The other thing is smaller cruise ships can get into a lot of ports that larger cruise ships cannot, because smaller cruise ships can fit into shallower water and smaller ports and things like that, or at best, maybe you won't have to tender, which is where you have to take another littler boat from the ship to the dock. So there's some things to consider about the size of the ship. And then you want to consider the itinerary. The itinerary can have a huge effect. Okay, so like, for example, we were talking earlier about some of us aren't hot weather people. Now, just because you're not a hot weather person doesn't mean you won't enjoy a cruise in a hot weather location like I talked about earlier. But if you absolutely have no interest in a place, don't take a cruise there. I mean, why would you go on if you hate snow and cold with a passion, well, then don't go to Alaska or the Arctic. Okay. So, I mean, things like that. So you need to choose the cruise line, the cruise ship, the cruise itinerary that best fits your personality. And like I said, there is everything from 2-day cruises to the Bahamas to 180-day world cruises and everything in between. And there are many, many, many different cruise lines with very different personalities. So you really have to just do your research and explore and see what's out there and figure out what, come to things like this, come to live streams like this that people who talk about cruising do, so you can hear about the different options and things like that. Okay, I have answered all of the cruise-related questions that were submitted ahead of time. I have some other questions, but I kind of want to save them for the video. Does anybody else here have any cruise-related questions, especially specific to our cruise we just took on Harmony of the Seas? Do you have any more questions for me? It was a 7-night out of Port Canaveral, Florida, which the closest airport basically is Orlando International Airport. And we went down ahead of time. Oh, good question. Seasickness. This is a common one. Okay. I am fortunate. I don't get seasick. The only time I got seasick on a ship was I was crossing on a ferry, which big ferries, Emma Cruises just did a video about this. She went on a ferry between Sweden and Finland. There are some big ferries in Europe and in the other places in the world that are just like cruise ships. They're just as big and have just as many passengers, plus cars. I was crossing on a ferry from Wales to Ireland. And it was very rough seas in the Irish Sea, and that's the only time I got seasick. But I learned some things on that trip that help. The first thing I would say is get outside. Get to the top deck outside, or if there's a promenade deck, get out on the deck and look at the horizon. A big mistake that people make when they get seasick, which this was the case for my dad. My dad got seasick on a cruise we went on once in November, like at Christmas time, on Disney Cruise Line. And he made a mistake, which you should not do, which is he just went down and laid down in the room. That's not really going to help you. I mean, if you can take some travel sickness medicine like Dramamine or something that makes you drowsy anyway and go to sleep, that might help you. But you shouldn't do that like he did, which was he went on an empty stomach and he didn't eat his dinner. And because that's where he started to feel sick was at dinner. And he laid down. I don't think he was able to go to sleep. Here's the thing. The dining rooms are always, except on Queen Mary 2, because she's a transatlantic ocean liner, not on a regular cruise ship. The dining rooms, the restaurants are almost always in the back of the ship. The back of the ship and the front of the ship, the bow and the stern, are the places you're going to feel the most motion. Because a ship is like, think of like, it goes up and down in the water like this. So the middle moves the least and the ends move the most. So if you're concerned about seasickness, get a cabin in the middle of the ship and as low down as possible. And then if you start to feel seasick, avoid those places on the ends. The other thing I would suggest is, I don't know from personal experience because I haven't had an issue with it, but these are the things that people who do get seasick swear by. Get like Bonine, Dramamine, those kind of medicines, but make sure you take it before you start to feel sick. Like take it like when the ship isn't moving yet. Some people say the bands work really well that you wear around your wrist. It's like an acupressure thing. And some people like the patches that you wear behind your ear. And I think you can get all of those over the counter at like a pharmacy.
I saw a few people wearing both of those
on our last cruise. Yeah. And the other thing I know from experience, if you go down to deck 1 or deck 2, where the medical center is, they often have a bowl of free travel sickness medicine just sitting there that you can just take. They did on Disney anyway. I think they did on Royal Caribbean too, the one time we had to go to the medical center. So those are my suggestions. Oh, one more thing, ginger. There are ginger. I know all about ginger because I had all 9-month, all day morning sickness with all 3 of my pregnancies. Okay, I don't get seasick, but I sure do get morning sickness. And they make ginger pops, ginger ale. They make ginger candies that you can suck on. The other thing that some people swear by is green apples. Who was not feeling good one night? Was it Ben?
Me.
Megan. One night.
After Wonderland.
Oh, yeah. She didn't like the food in Wonderland, and we're going to talk about that later, but she felt kind of sick, and we actually left Wonderland because we didn't like it and went back to the main dining room, and I asked our head server because she felt queasy from the weird food they served us in Wonderland, and I asked for some green apples. Did he bring you green apples?
No, because I decided that you want them.
Oh, then she decided she
I
didn't.
had grapes or something.
Yeah, she had some fruit. Stay hydrated. Stay hydrated and keep a little bit of food in your stomach all the time. One time when Andrew, my oldest son, was 4, we were on a Disney cruise and he got seasick and he just ate a little bit of bread, like, the bread that they bring out in the bread service, and then he was fine. So sometimes it's just that it's an empty stomach. You want to keep a little bit of food in your stomach all the time. Make sure you're drinking enough. Because I actually didn't feel real good one day, but it wasn't seasickness. It was because of the heat and the humidity. And I just needed to be in the air conditioning and drink some water, and then I was okay. So, yeah, okay. Hope that helps. But all of those things are good things to try. But don't let seasickness scare you off of cruising. Modern cruise ships have stabilizers. We've been on an all-access behind-the-scenes tour where we went to engineering and everything, and they showed us how everything works. And they handle the sea very well. They're not rough, really. I mean, you got to be in some pretty serious seas to feel it a lot. Okay. For you and your family, what is the ideal length of a cruise and why? Okay. I don't recommend 3 days for anyone. It's too short. You get on, you unpack, you have one day, and then you have to pack again. I don't think that's worth the money. The only time I would do that is like we were considering as a backup, if we couldn't get on this Harmony of the Seas cruise, a back-to-back on Disney Dream, which would have been a 4-day and a 3-day. And the only reason we were considering that is because it was one of the options. But 3 days tend to be people looking for a short, quick, cheap cruise. And so they want the least amount of money that they can pay, and they tend to be more of a party atmosphere. I will say that the kids actually did express that the 7-day was long.
Mhm.
They felt like it was long for them, but that could have been because that was their first 7-day cruise. They'd only been on 4-night cruises before that. Our next cruise that we're going on is going to be 5 nights, and I think you guys might think that's about perfect.
Okay.
I still prefer the 7-night. And actually, I would be very happy to go on a longer cruise. We have a 12-night cruise booked for next summer. I don't know if we're actually going to be able to do it or not because it's pretty expensive and I'm running out of money. But I mean, it's a very port-intensive cruise, and because we'd be doing a lot of sightseeing and stuff, I think it might not seem as long to them. The Eastern Caribbean itinerary with the 3 sea days, I can see how for them, with they have nothing to compare it to except a 4-night, might seem long. But I feel like a 7-night cruise is the ideal length, and that's what most cruises are. One sec.
Drinking my coconut water in the middle of the ocean.
Yes. Okay, good question. Wonderland. Meg. This was supposed to be Megan's special 18th birthday dinner. All right, here's the deal with Wonderland. Boy, it's weird. It is really weird. Now, I mean, we like the Alice in Wonderland story and stuff like that. There were 2 main problems with Wonderland. Well, 3. And I talk about this in a video coming up too. One is specialty dining is expensive. Okay, but that was like the least of my concerns. If you're going to go to a specialty dining restaurant, it's going to cost extra money. Why pay extra money when you can get plenty of food at places on the ship that are already included? Okay, so that's one factor. Wonderland is, you come in on one deck 15 maybe, but then, and that's where the lobby is, but then you go down a set of curved stairs. The dining room and the kitchen are actually one deck below. It has a beautiful big view off the back with big windows looking over, what does it look over? The boardwalk?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's nice. And it's decorated really pretty and stuff. And when you come in, the menu is invisible and you have to paint it with water and then the menu appears. But here's the thing. I don't really understand why they give you a menu, because you don't actually get to choose your food, right?
We got to choose our entree, which is like a piano spoon.
She's right. It was like a piano spoon.
Flavored little olive.
It was so weird. The food looks very interesting, but it's divided into 4 elements.
It's like it's meant to be more visual and experience.
Yeah, it's like
more
it's meant to be a
experience
visual
than
thing, not a
taste.
taste. It tasted awful. I'm not exaggerating. It was the most awful tasting stuff I've ever tasted in my life.
I agree.
It was horrible. It tasted like
Even
crap.
thinking about it like now.
It's making me sick thinking about it. You're not wrong.
Oh, stop.
Sorry. It was awful. It was not good tasting stuff. It was visually very interesting and creative. It was imaginative cuisine. That was the, right?
Yeah.
Imaginative.
Imaginative cuisine.
I don't know whose imagination they're getting it from because it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And then the other thing, so like the food literally made us sick and we had to leave because we were sick. And then the other thing that I didn't like about it, did you not like this either? It is not introvert friendly.
No, it is not. It's very interactive.
It's very interactive, and the Mad Hatter is talking to you, and
It was cool, but
and then the server guy is talking to you and explaining everything and saying stuff. The other thing is I couldn't hear him.
no, I couldn't type.
I couldn't hear him. And he was explaining stuff to us, like what this weird thing is he just brought me. But I couldn't hear what he was saying. So I didn't know what it was. So I just had to put it in my mouth and like, do not recommend. Okay. I know people have loved Wonderland and think it's like this really neat thing. We hated it. It was awful. We did not like it at all. There's more to that story. So stay tuned for the video where I talk about that because we didn't like it and I would not recommend it. I mean, yeah, you have to have a really weird taste palette to find that a good. You're gonna be hungry when you leave. You're gonna want different
Well,
food.
even if you like it, you're gonna be hungry because it was
It was so tiny. Yeah, you're still gonna be hungry because it was so
I'm
tiny.
not kidding. Pea on a spoon.
It was pea on a spoon. It was so tiny. It's like, here's your entree. It was so small. It was weird. It was like,
Here's your singular egg.
yeah, it was. It was one egg. It was imaginative, weird.
It was like an egg, a piece of cone. No, I know what it was. It was an egg, a little bit of wasabi,
Wasabi in a cone.
tequila,
Yeah, what was that?
an olive on a spoon.
It was so weird. It was so weird. It was the strangest tasting stuff. It did not taste like food.
No.
And it was so small. So yeah, and if you don't like people like hovering over you and being weird around, don't go there. It's just, that's all I gotta say. Okay. Yes, it was quite the experience. The best part about it was that we left and went back to the main dining room, and we were like an hour late.
Yeah.
So then we were like an hour late to our regular seating in the main dining room, and we were like mortified because we're like, are we still going to be able to get dinner? And they were so nice. They were so nice. And there's more to this story because I ended up canceling my 3 specialty dining package, and guest services was so nice about it. And the manager of Wonderland called me personally in my stateroom to make sure we were okay and was there anything he could do. And no, I mean, the service was very good. It's just weird. So that's all I have to say about that. Okay. So it's 3:00. I have to finish up because I have to go pack because I'm leaving in 2 hours and getting on a plane. So thank you so much to everyone who joined and everyone who submitted questions. And I hope I answered all your questions. If you have any other questions about cruising, about Royal Caribbean, about Harmony of the Seas, or the Oasis class ships, please leave them in the comments if you're watching this video later. And I will be sure to either answer them in the comments or I will add them to my list and include them in the pre-recorded video that I'm going to make that will come out on July 30th. But remember that there are going to be 3 more live streams, and I would really appreciate it if you would join me for those. Next week's live stream on July 9th, again at the same time, so 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Is that 8 o'clock UK time, William? Is that right? 9 o'clock EU, I think, in the evening. Thank you so much. Will be the same time, all 4 of these. And the topic that we're going to focus on next week is going to be Disney. We just went to Disneyland. We had an absolutely fantastic trip to Disneyland in California in January to celebrate Megan's graduating from high school early.
Megan gets a lot of trips.
Megan gets a lot of trips. This is like Megan's big year. And then we I said earlier in the year, if you've been following my channel for a while, that we switched from Walt Disney World to Disneyland for that trip because of COVID things, and that I still wanted to go to Walt Disney World yet this year because of the 50th anniversary. We are doing that. So we are going to be going to Walt Disney World yet this year. Yeah.
I'm sorry, we had about some.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to Walt Disney World next week. And again later. So we're going to Walt Disney World a couple times actually yet this year. So we have, and our last trip to Walt Disney World was in 2019. So I can answer a whole bunch of questions about like Disney Genie Plus, how does Disneyland compare to Walt Disney World? What's Disney World like now compared to what it was like before the pandemic? I'll be able to answer all of that stuff for you. So if you are interested in Disney stuff, please join me next week for my live stream. But again, please join me anyway, even if you're not interested in Disney. And if you have other travel questions, I will answer those too. So thank you everyone who joined me today. Thank you if you are watching this later. I hope you all have a great day. To my American friends, happy Independence Day weekend and safe travels, everyone. I'll see you soon.